My husband took everything in the divorce. The house, the savings, even the furniture we once picked together, laughing like the world couldn't touch us. But what he didn't realize, what he couldn't have known, was that by taking everything, he was also taking the one burden that had been slowly destroying my life. And that's what saved me. My name is Elena, I'm 34 years old, and for 10 years I was married to Daniel, a man who looked perfect on paper. Corporate success, expensive suits, smooth smile, he charmed everyone. Friends, coworkers, waiters, even stray dogs wagged their tails when he walked by. And for a long time, I thought I was lucky. Blessed, even. But perfection doesn't always shine. Sometimes it blinds you. The first red flag wasn't anger or betrayal. It was silence. Silence when I cried. Silence when I was scared. Silence when things were hard. Daniel didn't yell. He vanished. Into work. Into his phone. Into himself. And when I tried to talk about it, he would place a hand on my shoulder, sigh, and say, "Not everything has to be emotional, Elena." So I stopped being emotional. I stopped being myself. I became quiet, small, careful. He said he wanted a partner, but what he really wanted was a shadow. And then his business began to grow. He started hosting people at our home. Not friends, audiences. I learned to smile at the right times. Laugh politely. Pour wine, listen, disappear. One night, after a particularly long dinner party, I found a letter addressed to him left on the entry table. Curiosity isn't always betrayal. Sometimes it's survival. I opened it. It was from the bank. A second mortgage, on our house. My name wasn't on it. He had taken it out secretly. My heart fell into my stomach. I imagined losing everything. I imagined being trapped in debt. And then I realized something worse. I already was. But when I confronted him, he didn't shout or apologize or crumble. He smirked. "You wouldn't understand," he said. Like I was furniture, something to be moved aside. That was when the panic began. Quiet panic that lived in my bones. I'd wake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, wondering if he'd ever really loved me, or if I had simply filled a role. The divorce came soon after. He asked for it coldly, efficiently, like filing a business request. He told me it was for the best. And then he told me he had hired one of the best lawyers in the state. I had none. He took the house, the savings, the car, almost everything. He left me a small, nearly useless alimony payment. Enough to keep me from sinking, but never enough to swim. People said fight, but I was exhausted, emotionally threadbare. I signed the papers with shaking hands. And when it was over, I sat on the floor of my tiny new apartment surrounded by cardboard boxes that smelled like dust and endings. I cried until my stomach hurt. He thought he had won. He strutted away with everything shiny and visible. But he had also walked away with all the debt he'd hidden. The mortgage, the looming lawsuits from a risky investment, the tax audit, the mess he thought he'd control forever. I didn't know it yet, but that burden was no longer mine. And I was finally free. At first, freedom didn't feel like freedom. It felt like falling. I took a job at a local cafe because it was the first place that didn't look at me like I was broken. The cafe was small, warm, always smelling like cinnamon and new beginnings. The owner, Maria, had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. "You'll be okay," she told me one slow afternoon. "Sometimes losing everything means you get to choose what comes next." I didn't believe her then. But I wanted to. Working there reminded me I was human. People smiled at me, talked to me. I listened to their stories. And slowly, without realizing it, I began to rebuild. I started sketching again. I used to paint when I was younger, but I had packed away that part of myself like an old sweater. Now, after my shifts, I'd sit by my window and draw the world as I wished it to be, soft and imperfect. One regular customer noticed. His name was Jonah. Kind eyes, quiet voice. He was nothing like Daniel. He didn't fill silences, he shared them. One afternoon he asked, "Why don't you sell your art?" I laughed. "Because no one would buy it." He shrugged. "You'd be surprised what the world needs." He encouraged me, helped me set up an online shop, showed me patience without expecting anything back. And for the first time in years, I felt seen without being owned. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was beginning to crack. I heard about it through a mutual acquaintance. The investments failed. The lawsuits multiplied. The second mortgage defaulted. His perfect life turned brittle and sharp. He looked for someone to blame. But I wasn't there anymore. And he had signed everything into his name. He had taken the house, the accounts, the assets, and the disaster. Sometimes fate isn't cruel. Sometimes it is balanced. Months passed. My artwork began to sell. Slowly, then consistently. People messaged saying my drawings made them feel less alone. That sentence right there, that healed something inside me. Then one evening, just before closing, Daniel walked into the cafe. He looked thinner, older, like someone had drained the color from him. He stared at me as though seeing me for the first time. "Elena," he said softly. "Can we talk?" We sat. He told me everything. The debt, the bankruptcy, the loneliness. He had pushed everyone away and now there was no one left. For a brief moment, I saw the man I once fell in love with, lost, scared, human. "I thought I had everything," he whispered. "But now, I wish I'd had you instead." My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just felt calm. "I hope," I said gently, "you learned something from this. Not spite, not revenge, truth." He nodded. For once, he didn't argue. We went our separate ways. 2 years later, I own a small art studio. Children come in and paint with their entire hearts. Adults sit quietly, learning to breathe again through color and brush strokes. Jonah is still here, still kind, still patient. We aren't rushing, we're simply existing, together. And sometimes, when I lock up at night, I stand outside and breathe in the cool air. I think about the life I lost. And the life I found. Losing everything didn't break me. It stripped away the noise, the control, the expectations. It gave me back myself. And here's the lesson I carry, the one I hope reaches whoever needs it. Sometimes the greatest blessing doesn't arrive as a gift. It arrives as a loss. Because when someone takes everything and you're still standing, you realize that what you truly needed was never theirs to begin with.